There's used condoms in this movie, Nathan.
Now dig on this.
Hello, and
Hello.
welcome to Classic Movie Banter. You know that podcast where me, that guy Brenton, and that other guy sitting over there right at the end of the table, Nathan.
Toot toot.
We talk about movies that are 20 years or older.
20
years.
years.
Or in this case, Nathan?
27 years.
Thank you very much. And we tell you if those movies are still worth watching today or not. And more importantly, if they're worth getting your mates around on a Thursday night, popping that movie in your little video player, grabbing some poppycorn, sitting down, pouring a bourbon and having a good old watcheroo. Nathan, how's it going, dude?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Tomorrow, I'm not turning 27, I'm turning 25, so I'm still younger than this movie, which is good news.
Nathan, do you want me to sing happy birthday or skip
please,
the
I
pleasantries?
hate that shit. I hate birthday songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't do them.
Do you have like are you superstitious at all? Do you blow out the candles and when you do it you make a wish and all that stuff?
I kind of stopped because none of them came true, you know? Like, every year I just wished for Brenton to go away and he never did, listeners, so I've given up on the candles.
If you feel that too, write into the show and tell us how much you hate Brenton.
You know what I mean? Like, every time you get a bloody birthday song, like, I hate it being sung to you because it's just so embarrassing. You're the center of attention. And furthermore, like, you know what? I really find it interesting the type of people that are the ones that do the hip hip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's always someone who wants to be in the center of the room and be the fucking hip person. You know what I mean? It's like, shut the fuck up. It's like,
yeah, it's funny because I'm usually a hip person.
oh yeah, I bloody called it. Just that motherfucker who wants to divert the attention away from birthday boy or girl and be like, hip hip.
Well, listeners, I might start a poll this week asking if you're a hip person or a hooray person.
That's really the division this world needs to know.
But Nathan, getting away from division, happy birthday, my friend. It's incredible that you've managed to live this long.
It really is. I'm just, every year passes, I'm like, it's just the sweet release of death. That's all I need, frankly.
Nathan, that's morbid as fuck. But anyway, let's continue.
Going as far away from morbidity as we can, Brenton, we're here to talk about a movie I recommended for the show. I thought since it's the B-Day, I'd put on a classic that I loved as a kid. You know, it's old. It fits the criteria, Brenton. It's Jim Carrey's The Mask.
Well, released in 1994 and directed by Chuck Russell, who also directed such films as A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Iconic.
The Scorpion King,
Right.
as in
As in the Rock
movie?
one?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And this movie.
What a work of art, you know, all of them.
What a varied filmography. But yeah, Nathan's brought this film so we can celebrate in the proper fashion and give this movie the respect it deserves.
It does. No listener letter this week, listeners. It was my one that I brought to the table. So
Yeah.
you can point all the fingers at me for this episode.
Unfortunately, this week Nathan had to choose the movie, but as of next week, we'll be going back to listener. We're going back to listener suggestions where you, our listeners, write in via email and tell us what films you want us to talk about. So yeah, if you have a movie that you're dying to hear Nathan and Brenton have a chat about, send us an email. Let us know. We'll respond.
Yeah, we'll probably do it. So here we go. Brenton, sit down. Sit the fuck down. I'm going to pitch you this movie. Can you pitch me the movie?
Nathan, tell me about The Mask.
Brenton, we're in the 90s again. Like, we were there for
Back
Lebowski,
again.
and we're back again. We just can't escape it. And Jim Carrey, Brenton, he's a banker, and his life fucking sucks. He's in a job he doesn't really like. He's kind of a bit of a loser. Can't talk to any pretty girls, or any girls for that matter, because he's apparently too nice of a guy, Brenton. So, what a burden. In this.
Oh, what a dilemma. What a character dilemma that you're too nice.
You're just
Give me
too
a break.
nice.
Anyway, continue.
Gosh, what a flawed hero. So, you know what? He's poor. He's down on his luck, but then he stumbles upon the mask. It's a wooden mask that kind of looks like he just got it from like some, amateur theater. But if he puts it on, Brenton, he's no longer Jim Carrey. He's Jim Carrey with some green face paint.
Oh, wow.
I know. He's got some magical abilities that are various, but as this superpowered individual, he can stop crime and maybe get the attention of the woman he loves.
Okay, I have many questions.
Great.
And, great pitch, by the way. But so you said his powers are varied, but are they consistent?
Yes. He can basically alter reality. So he can essentially make make any object appear that he imagines.
Okay.
And he's got super speed. In the same way he's got reality bending powers, he can also kind of get others to do what he wants based on his antics.
Right.
So he can kind of hypnotize people to go along with his antics. Antics is a good word for it.
You mentioned that he fights crime. Is that a big part of this film?
That's almost a zero part of this film, Brenton.
Okay.
But
just checking.
Because this is an adaptation, Brenton. We're adapting the critically acclaimed Dark Horse comic, The Mask, which is renowned for its graphic violence and, dark themes. Hence why we're making a family-friendly comedy starring Jim Carrey in the 90s.
So Nathan, let's get into it.
All right.
You watched this movie as a kid, and I'm guessing you really enjoyed it because you brought it for us to review today. Watching this again, what do you think?
Here's the thing, Brenton. Let's give some bloody context to this movie, right? So I've seen this maybe 7 or 8 times, genuinely, as a kid / teenager. Because I bloody love this as a kid. This is a kid's bloody buffet. Because it's just Jim Carrey fucking about for 2 hours, being Jim Carrey, just dropping these funny lines, being very, very silly, and he's got superpowers. What more could you want as a kid? Fuck Kellogg's, this is where it's at. Whereas you, Brenton, you have never experienced The Mask, to my surprise.
Yeah, no, I've never ever seen this movie.
Which I have no idea how the fuck you avoided this.
Well, I saw trailers because it was obviously quite big, and
yeah.
when I was a kid, and a lot of kids had seen it and enjoyed it. But I saw some clips from it, and I think a trailer. I was a bit creeped out. I was like, man, that's a bit unsettling, and I don't know what it is about it, but it just looked like a good time. It just looks a bit weird.
Right.
So I never got around to watching it, unfortunately. But Nathan, now we've shared our experiences.
We have. I want you to go first.
What do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first because your opinion is way more interesting, I think, because you have never seen this before and you're coming into this blind and as an adult. So I am so much more intrigued as to what your opinions are on this movie.
Okay, cool. All right, fine. I'll rip the Band-Aid off and I'll get into it. Nathan, I got to explain. I'll say my opinion and then I'll explain how I watched this movie.
Great.
So here it is. Here's the statement of the day for you all of you back home. And I'm really sorry to do this to you on your birthday, my friend.
Okay.
But this movie is absolutely terrible. It is absolutely atrocious. There is nothing redeeming about it, and it is not a good time. It was actually it brought laughter to me. I expelled some laughs, but laughing at how shittily this piece of shit had been made. Nathan, when I watched this, when I watched this movie, get this, my girlfriend, my partner was over at my house, and
great.
I was like, I apologized too. I said, I apologized twice. The first time I said before we started watching, I said, look, I've got to watch a movie for the show. Okay,
yes.
I've got to do that tonight. So do you want to join me? It's The Mask. It's Jim Carrey's The Mask. And she said, you know what, Brenton, I haven't seen Jim Carrey's The Mask either. And I was like, yeah,
no.
cool, well, let's watch it together. We sat there. I time coded when this happened, okay?
Great.
So 10 minutes in, she turns to me and goes, this isn't good. And I said, I agree. But then we silently continue watching, silently, no laughs had. And then it got to half an hour in. I checked the time code when she did this. She said, I can't watch this anymore. I'd rather have a nap, which is what I'm going to do. And she rolled over and went to sleep.
Jesus Christ.
And I stirred her awake when the credits rolled.
Oh.
Nathan, it's no good. Look, I laughed my ass off from the start when Cameron Diaz walked into frame. It zoomed in on her boobs, and then it zoomed in on Jim Carrey's face reacting to the boobs.
The male gaze in this movie is atrocious.
This movie sucks for many reasons, and it's also quite offensive.
It's in very many ways.
I didn't laugh at any of the jokes, and I was shocked that this was aimed at children. Children, Nathan. There's used condoms in this movie.
Oh my
Nathan.
God. As a kid, I never noticed the used condom until this viewing.
Totally. It's bizarre. It's creepy. It's unsettling. It's I don't think any of the characters are even redeemable.
No one is that likable. And you know what? Including Jim Carrey. I think he's one of the most likable characters in this.
He's not even a character. He's just this guy that's I'm too nice, but he's this shitty individual that's I wouldn't even say he's an individual. He's just like Jim Carrey, putting on an act.
It's just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
It's not good. It's really not good.
At least in Bruce Almighty, he's trying to act a little bit.
Oh man, I don't even think this is enjoyable. It's kind of on that level of Batman. It's kind of on that level of Batman and Robin, where it's really bad, but Batman and Robin's so bad that it's good.
Yeah.
It gave me massive Batman and Robin vibes, but it wasn't
not Batman Forever with actual Jim Carrey.
No. Batman and Robin, the really really shit one that's still really funny to watch with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's a funny movie. This isn't funny at all, and it's trying to be funny, but I don't think I laughed once.
Look, dude, when I was a kid, Like, I truly didn't notice any of the adult jokes. Like, it just went completely over my head. So, like, all the shit that we're noticing now, like, I promise you as a kid, it just wasn't on the radar. As a kid, it's really funny because as a kid, like, the fact that Jim Carrey's making stupid faces and he's saying funny lines, like, and he's making funny voices like, shh, stop me. Like, he's kind of like, hey, kid, what's up? Like, he's just doing, like, weird voices. That's enough for a kid. And he's bouncing about, he's smashing alarm clocks. Like, as a kid, that is so enough. But you're right, as an adult, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I sat there and I'm like,
dude,
and like I sat watching this movie alone, and like, because I haven't seen this since I was like a kid. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I'm like looking at my hands in front of me, like, what have I done? Oh, because you're right, dude. This is dog shit.
Did you feel bad watching this? Like knowing that I was also viewing this, and
I felt as bad as I did when I recommended Mulan. I'm like, God, I'm just not doing well these days, am I? Like,
it was atrocious, man. Like I don't know if it's like the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's like it's pretty bad. Like it's
like,
pretty bad.
You know what really surprised me with this viewing? As someone who, because by the way, I love this. Like, if you had asked me a week ago and earlier if I love The Mask, but absolutely, this is like so fucking funny. But like, what's really glaring? There's a couple issues with it as an adult watching this, right? Because like, first thing, yeah, like this is so fucking creepy. I had no clue how creepy this movie was until like today. Jesus, just every character is hitting on Cameron Diaz just for the sake of it, and like all the women are so creepily in love for like every male character for no reason. Like, there's two women in this movie, the reporter and Cameron Diaz, and they're both obsessed with like Jim Carrey for no reason, apart from the fact he's the protagonist. So there's that. And then
exactly. Yeah,
you're so fucking right when you mention this is a bit like 90s Batman. I don't think just in like Batman and Robin ways. I think in every fucking way. This city looks like Gotham. People just act so stupid. It's got that shitty 90s gang in it, where, you know, it's got like the street gangs being like, huh, we're all in like leather, let's fucking kill someone and knife them. Like, the movie is so lazy and based on cliches. This might have one of the worst soundtracks I think I've ever heard in a movie.
Yes, I agree. The soundtrack is egregious. Yeah,
it is so lazy with every musical cue, and it has that shitty 90s piano tune in the background. I'm like, fuck off with that. But like, it also just has like every time, like, you know, Cameron Diaz says something nice, Jim Carrey plays like some like sweet romantic tune. There's only one good scene with music in this movie, which is spoilers, but that's like the only good scene in this movie.
Okay, yeah. Will we chat about that now or later?
Later.
Okay, cool. Fair enough.
Yeah, so soundtrack shit. What really surprised me with this movie is how there's no story. There's like literally no story.
It was a trek, dude, as well. Like, I will say that this movie is like an hour 40, right? Which is short for a movie.
Yeah.
Short for an old movie too. Like we've reviewed some long films, and this felt like an absolute trek to get through.
I swear Dr. Zhivago was faster than this. Like,
oh man, it was. It totally was. That's a great example of something that, like, hey, you didn't enjoy, but like, man, like,
even that still felt faster. Like, this fucking by the way, I knew every scene in this movie. I knew what was coming up, and this still fucking crawled. I'm like, oh, come on, get to the bit where this character does this. I'm like, come the fuck on. Like, I'm trying to work out what the main like story is, because it's not about the mask. It's more about Jim Carrey like being more confident in himself. Like, that's what the obvious metaphor of the movie is,
I guess. But at the same time,
or
like,
him getting the girl.
He's like, the opening scene is him like spoilers, but the opening scene of the movie is him like asking a girl out. Like, he's got balls. He knows how to. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's got confidence, and then like she kind of rejects him, and he's like, oh yeah, whatever. And then the next line is that his creepy ass fucking horrible best friend is like,
God,
oh, I'm gonna take you on a love safari tonight. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a kids movie. Like, what's going on? This
feels like it was just written by some creepy old screenwriter in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like someone in their 60s, just like, it's just a hangover of the 20th century, man. Just like, when most of the special effects, which is what this film at the time was lauded for, like everyone was fucking like, oh, the mask doing its special effects, but when most of them is making this creepy ass Jim Carrey green thing, oh my
like,
God,
have its eyes boggle and its jaws drop at like the side of Cameron Diaz's like upskirt shots in the film. It's like, it's
trying
really,
to do Roger Rabbit when he first sees Jessica Rabbit, you know, like,
it's too much. Look, I'm saying this movie is creepy without even talking about the mask itself.
Oh my goodness. So like, it's sexually creepy in the way it treats Cameron Diaz, but also like, yeah, like, to be honest with you, the special effects are not the worst thing about this film. Like for like 1994, I forgive the special effects.
Yeah, totally.
There's also a lot of practical stuff in here. Like, it's still a predominantly practical film, I would say.
Yeah, like today it'd just be CGI Red Skull > mask thing. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
jeez.
It would look like Red Skull, but green. Like, that's how it would look.
Essentially, yeah. Bring back Hugo Weaving. It just feels so outdated, and certainly not for children. Every character, for some reason, smokes in this movie, which, like, I forget how weird it sounds now, considering, like, it's just not in children's films anymore. But, like, not that, like, smoking's an issue, but it just doesn't feel like it's for kids at all.
Well, especially, like, one of the smoking scenes, one of the main smoking scenes is Jim Carrey in, like, a dream sequence where he thinks he's really cool, and he's smoking smoke? And he's like, I'm just smoking. And you're like,
Yeah.
hang on a second, this is like a family kids movie. Like what in the 90s? Like, it's not that old, dude.
I know what they're thinking, and it's like, I know this doesn't feel for children because it's like it's way too adult, and this doesn't feel like it's for adults because it's way too kiddie. It's just, it has no understanding of its audience. This reminds me, Brenton, a lot of Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, exactly. But Inspector Gadget is way better than this.
Yeah, and we hated Inspector Gadget, and yeah, here we are, dude.
Exactly.
It just feels like they got some like shitty Saturday morning cartoon, and they just made a full feature film of it, but didn't change literally anything about it. You know what I mean?
Is it just me as well, or is the mask itself like horrifying? Like it's not nice. It's not funny. Like it's a scary, weird, gross thing that I'm like, I don't want to be near that thing. Like it's probably gonna give me COVID. I don't know. Like it's like it doesn't look safe. It doesn't look fun. It's not funny. It's just kind of gross, and I just want to not be in the same room as that ever.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
As a kid, and like someone who used to love this movie before today, but like when you see him and he's like saying smoking and like PARTY, like these iconic lines, like you ignore the mask. You know what I mean? Also because he changes costumes every third second. Like he's like the genie. He's essentially the genie from Aladdin, where he's just changing his shtick every time and doing different accents. In fact, it's weird because I think this came out the same year as Aladdin or close to it. So like I think Aladdin came first. So like it is weird seeing, because this does remind me a lot of Genie in the sense of like Jim Carrey's doing all these different accents and voices, changing his looks. Like this almost feels like the live action Genie movie that they were going to make before Robin Williams passed. You know, like
I hope that Genie movie would have been 10 times the film that this is.
Another big nail I want to drive into this movie's coffin, Brenton, is that I think this is some of the shittiest acting I've seen from a cast in a movie.
I agree. Yeah. Like, look, I'm not a fan of Cameron Diaz on a good day. Right?
Oh, right.
But on a bad day, she's even worse. Like,
she's good in Shrek.
Yeah, that's what I mean. No, she's great in Shrek.
Yeah.
But like, I was literally actually quote when I was watching this with my girlfriend. I said, I hate Cameron Diaz apart from Shrek. I think she's great in that, but everything else, I've never bought her in anything. I'm just kind of like, oh yeah,
she's no good in Charlie's Angels.
Oh my god, watch her in Gangs of New York, like Scorsese's Gangs of New York.
Oh my god,
watch her trying to do like her Irish American accent is the funniest shit you've ever seen. Just get on it.
That's got me so much more excited for that movie.
Like she's in scenes apart from like opposite Daniel Day-Lewis, right?
Jeez,
and she's
what a pairing!
Talking about it, and you're just like, oh my god.
They should have brought in Daniel Day-Lewis for the mask.
Could you imagine Daniel Day-Lewis getting like pitched the mask? And being like, what's the character about? He's just a nice guy. He's just a nice guy, and he can't get any girls because he's too nice.
He does a method where he wears like a mask for like months before they start shooting. Like,
you're literally so right, dude. This has just been written by some old creepy dude.
Yeah.
Literally, that's like, oh, I can't get any girls because I'm too nice. When clearly he's probably got some other issues.
Yeah,
like,
jeez. It's just garbage, man. Like, honestly, like, I'm trying to think of redeeming qualities of this movie. Like, it's because as a kid, I don't think any of these issues would stand out. I think as a kid, you just eat this dumb shit and be like happy with it. But like, this is not a classic, man. Like, adults shouldn't watch this. And like, even if you've got nostalgia for this movie, like, because I have a fuck ton of nostalgia for this movie, and I just felt my heart break, Brett. I'm just like, oh, like I had like a little like streamer. I'm like, oh, happy birthday to me. Just like, like my little like cone hat is just like sinking. Like,
like it doesn't happen often, but like you've literally ruined your own birthday. With like remembering this fond childhood classic that's actually it's not
what
good.
A gift.
It's not good, Nathan.
Especially since like last year we did Emperor's New Groove for my birthday. It's like, what a fucking cliff we've jumped off. Like,
I'm trying to like find other things to talk about as well, because obviously we've just kind of like gone on this tangent of like, this is really, really shit.
What more can we say, Brenton? Like, I think the acting is abysmal. I hate the henchmen. I hate all the like extras who are just like making over facial. It's like they're stage acting like to the nth degree, where they're just over expressing every emotion. Like, oh,
the screenplay is an absolute travesty. The way it has like its villain characters that like are just kind of there on the side, and they've got their own thing going. So they've tried, but it's like you're very confused as to what exactly is going on and why Jim Carrey's even involved to begin with.
There's no
it's
major
so
themes.
like cliched. There's so many plot holes of like trying to just make things happen for the sake of them happening. The way it's shot, dude, like the way the camera, like I said, zooms in on like reaction shots of like Jim Carrey looking at boobs, and you're like,
oh Christ,
it's just
so
it's no good.
Creepy. It's just such a turn off, man. It's like, I think it's also where maybe in the 90s, maybe they were just so happy to see a superhero movie that wasn't absolute dog shit. Like, you know, they're like Jim Carrey, what a choice. Like, but the fact that like we've had so many better superhero movies today, I guess we hold a higher standard these days, Brenton.
Absolutely, and we should. They should have held a higher standard back then, just for movies in general. Like, this is a terrible movie.
It feels like it was made in like the late 70s, early 80s. If you remove the CGI, it's got that same kind of attitude. It's just, and you know, it could have been so much better. Like with a decent script and Jim Carrey at your disposal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, take out all the creepy shit.
Absolutely.
Give him an actual character character arc that reflects the overall themes of the movie. Oh, this needs a real script doctor, man. We need to take this to like the nearest hospital.
Yeah, exactly. Get it sorted. Give it some CPR and get it back on the road. Hopefully we can save it. Nathan, that reminds me, just speaking of Jim Carrey, that the final comment I'll say from my girlfriend that she mentioned while watching this, at the very start she said, "Oh, sometimes I find Jim Carrey a bit annoying in movies, but hopefully like he's good in this one." And like if you find Jim Carrey like
oh my goodness,
in any way annoying, or like you don't like his humor, whatever the occasion.
Oh no.
Do not watch this. Never watch this. This
will put him on your banned list because, like, seriously, like, and like, I like Jim Carrey in Kick-Ass too. I like him. I even like him in Batman and Robin. I like his Riddler because it's just so fucking ludicrous.
I love him in The Truman Show. I think he's got really good depth in that film. I think he's a good actor.
We both like him in Sonic.
Yep, I like him in The Grinch. Like I like.
I know
him.
you do.
I like Jim Carrey, but this is just too much. Someone needed to tell Jim, just be like, go up to Jim, be like, "So Jim, no."
It's weird that also Jim is known for his prosthetics after doing like this in Grinch. Like he really like goes all in, like to his credit, and like bless him, like Jim tried. Like, you can say that about this movie. He really tried, but you can't just have Jim Carrey. You need good people to bounce it off him. It's like, one of the reasons, like, Bruce Almighty works so well is because you have Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell both, like, delivering to make sure it's not just the Jim show. And Morgan Freeman as well. You know what I mean? Like, you need a good supporting cast.
Totally. Exactly. And this one's missing a supporting cast. And also, it's like Jim Carrey is, like, trying to pick up the pieces and try harder to get the laughs. And you're like, dude, just, it's too much. It's not funny to begin with. You just shouldn't have signed on. You'll probably paid a lot of money to do it, but you just shouldn't have done it.
Literally, like his wardrobe full of money is the paycheck he got. They just said at the end of the day, you can keep the notes.
Maybe he had a vision into the future and it was like, "Jim, if you take this money and do this role, 2 Australian boys will make a podcast episode in a few years' time labeling how shit your film is." And Jim was like, "I'm taking the money and doing it." Like, who cares?
Yeah, man, exactly.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
Well, Nathan, does this movie get the banter seal of approval, or do we give it a thumbs down?
Brenton obviously gets a thumbs down, and I'm so sorry, man. I was hoping we'd look back on this with lovely eyes, but I feel like this is my Black Cauldron, or my Land Before Time. Yeah.
This is worse than both of those films, and you know it. Nathan, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Land Before Time's worse.
No. This is 10 times worse than Land Before Times. I'm sorry that you had to pick this film for yourself to watch on your birthday. Like, it just sucks, man. Like, I'm really sorry. Maybe next year you'll get another Emperor's New Groove, something that's on that caliber that you're just like, I've got to talk about this thing that I just love.
I don't know, man. I don't have much left. My love in my heart now after this.
Well, hopefully we can find some love in the spoilers section.
Oh, I doubt it.
You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh. Nathan, what was the musical moment that you kind of enjoyed?
Man,
let's get to it.
The one thing that's iconic about this movie, that's still fucking iconic, it holds up to date, it's the Cuban Pete scene. It's so good.
I mean, it's pretty fun.
It's so good.
By that point, I feel like I'd just been like too abused to like really enjoy it. Like I was just kind of like... I was just kind of like, oh yeah. I mean, like this is not offending me anymore, and it's like, it's not bashing me over the head anymore. So it was a nice reprieve. I'll give it that. But yeah, whether I think it's iconic is a whole other thing. But Nathan, I can see why you find it so enjoyable and why it was nice to have a moment at least that lives up to your expectations.
Oh,
so
it's so good, man. Like the way he hypnotizes the police and they're all just like dancing along and they're just going and getting around it, and it's a good rendition of Cuban Pete. Like it's fun. They're doing a fun little Cuban line. Like oh man, I remember just like bumping to this as a kid, and like I'm still doing it. Like it's just
I'm just imagining little Nathan sitting at home, like he's just turned his little VCR on, he's popped in the Mask video, and he's just sitting there. He's fast forwarded to this scene, and you walk in, and he's just bumping it. And he's just doing a little jig around
just shaking
the room.
some invisible maracas.
Nathan, what are you doing? I'm bumping, Mum.
Just like, back to the hospital. But like it's like it's a good time, man. And like he's probably the funniest in that scene, dude. Like because it's preceded by a really fucking creepy scene where he tries to essentially rape Cameron Diaz as like the Mask.
Yeah.
And then like he gets interrogated by those cops. Oh, I hate the cops. Fuck, I hate the cops in this movie. Like
as in the detective.
Yeah, the detective and his shitty little assistant. Like
yeah, kill me now. Terrible.
They're just
terrible. It's just again too much, dude. Like. This guy is just... It makes no sense why he does the things he does and why he's like, I'm gonna research into Jim Carrey and investigate. You're like, but why?
Yeah.
Like, really, why?
It's just because the movie demands it. Like, you know, he needs the cops against him and that kind of stuff. It's like trying to be Batman, but not Batman. It's like, oh, and like I hate his little assistant who's like, oh, or, like it's like meant to be like a running gag. Where it's like, oh, come on, Doyle, whatever his name is, and you're like, oh, shut up. like none of the jokes landed there. It's just
this movie's got no room for Doyle. I don't have time for Doyle, dude.
Nah.
Like, no time for Doyle. Hashtag no time for Doyle.
There we go. Like, you know what I found really interesting as well? So the mask, the origins of this mask is that it was made by Loki.
Yeah, I did enjoy that actually. That was the one thing I did enjoy in that scene where like he goes to the mask specialist that he sees on TV.
Oh yeah.
Towards the beginning of the film, and he's like, "Oh, what's with this mask?" He's like, "Oh, it's like a depiction of Loki." But then it's followed up by this awful, cringy, shitty moment where Jim's like, I'll do it. I'll show you that I'm telling the truth. And he goes to put the mask on. Yeah. And he says it like that too. No. So it's daylight and apparently the mask doesn't work during the day. So he puts this mask on. He starts doing this weird fucking like dance, like weird noise shit thing. And you're going, this isn't funny. And it keeps going on. And you're like, and I laughed because I was like, this is fucking awful.
Imagine being on set for this, man.
Who okayed that on the set, and then who edited that? So, like, who just cut that out?
Like, great work, Jim. Great work.
Oh, it's terrible. Just skip to that scene, listeners, so you can understand my pain.
It reminds me of that awkward scene from Sam Raimi's film Spider-Man, where Tobey Maguire's like awkwardly trying to work out the Spidey like action, like with his hands. Like he's just like trying all these different moves. Like,
oh, you cannot relate. You cannot relate this scene from The Mask with Jim Carrey to Spider-Man 1, where Tobey Maguire is eliciting his extreme comedic skills to show us, you know, that he can't work out how to make the fucking web hand. Dude, like, they're on two different levels.
Brendan's like, how dare you?
Whilst I admit that the Raimi trilogy is cheesy, like, you know, for all money, it's so cheesy. This other thing is creepy, weird, an offense to my being, okay? It is awful, and I have to sit through it for like 30 seconds of my life that feels like 2 hours of Jim Carrey doing this weird Mr. G / I don't know, fucking like Ted Bundy impersonation, like with his mask on.
You're
and I'm
not
just
wrong.
like, I just want to rip it off him and handcuff him to something so he doesn't chase me down the hall. It's terrible.
How did Jim Carrey get into that meeting though? Like when he meets the mask guy, I want to know like the context for that. Like because obviously this guy's on television, he must be a well-known like psychologist or whatever. So like what did Jim Carrey have to say to get into that meeting with him in the first place? And like, you know what I mean?
Do you reckon he just buzzes him like ready? He just bzzz. It's like, hi, I'm professional mask man here, and Jim Carrey's like, I've got a mask, and he's like, come on up, Jim.
Come on down. Let's talk about your mask. And like,
I'll make room in my schedule.
And Jim Carrey's like, what's a Loki? And he's like, oh, it's the god of mischief. And I love he says like Loki's like trapped in the mask. I'm like, I would fucking love it. Just like Tom Hiddleston just jumps out of the mask at one point. Just
He put on the mask and he turned into Tom Hiddleston at night. Speaking of putting on the mask,
oh my goodness.
Obviously, we've spoken about how awful, like, and horrifying Jim Carrey is. He's not the only person that puts on the mask, but when anyone puts on the mask, we go, like you said, through this body horror moment where people are like screaming in pain like as though they're being tortured and screaming, and the mask is doing this horrible animation where it's like
choking the face. It's like, yeah,
it's like growing into your skin, like going under.
It's like
your
a
skin.
face hugger from Alien.
But dude, when the villain put the mask on and he became the atrocity that he
it's like when Jafar becomes the genie. It's like it's the exact same thing.
Like why? Why does he look like one of the orcs out of Lord of the Rings?
It's so diametric as well. Like for some reason the mask has a morality sense where if you're good it looks like, I don't know, Jim Carrey, and if you're bad, it's like a little like storm clouds if you're a bad person, and it gives you little red eyes. It's like Christ. It's like, do you need any more signals to like 5-year-olds that this is the fucking villain? It's like, jeez. Like,
dude, how bad was the scene where Cameron Diaz was like tied to the pole and she's like, give me one last kiss, and that like demon mask thing's like, oh yeah. He's just like, take the mask off first, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And he like does the snake tongue and like licks her, and then he like rips his mask off. I was like, that is disgusting. Speaking of sexual innuendos, what is it with the pencil and the pencil sharpener at the start of this movie and the pen that he sticks in there? Oh my God. Like when she walks into his office, like
I love it. It's just so wrong. It's so offensive.
Who okayed this?
There's a lot of bad. Like, dude. There's a scene where like Jim Carrey just like sticks up car parts up like his like some mechanic's ass, and they have to like go to hospital. It's like, Jesus, there's genuine sexual assault on this. It's like, oh, and like the fact that like the reporter like is just so thirsty on Jim Carrey. It's just like he's not a good guy.
Yeah, right. So she does all that like in a scene where she's not being paid off, and then it turns out she is being paid off. Yeah, and you're like, what's going on here?
It's so
why is she a character?
For like
why
50K,
is this happening
it's
in the
just
movie?
yeah, exactly.
And also the whole plot of this movie is that the bad guys are going going to rob a bank, right?
Yeah.
And at the start, they're sending Cameron Diaz into rob a bank. And then Jim Carrey as the mask just steals the bank's money in 2 seconds because he's going to, I guess, bribe his way into the stupid club or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he bribes his way in and uses the money that way just to get Cameron Diaz. And then the whole movie is like, who robbed this bank? And it's like
it's just and they have his fingerprints. They have evidence, by the way, that it's Jim Carrey. Like, they have his scanned prints.
Yeah.
And they've got the pajamas.
Yeah,
They've got credible evidence. And then, like, at the end of the movie, the mayor just dismisses it. He's like, it wasn't him. It was the bad guy.
That wasn't him. He's a nice guy. And you're like, what?
Like, who the fuck is this mayor that suddenly randomly appears and just happens to go? It reminds me of the end of Grinch, where, like, you know, that guy's like saying in the sack, like, oh, we got all the presents. Everything's okay. It reminds me of that bullshit ending where it's just happy for the sake of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's probably some middle class, like lower middle class family that's really struggled to get that Christmas dinner together that's been fucking ruined by the Grinch.
Yeah.
And they're like, we lost our turkey. It's like, it's all here and accounted for. It's like, no one counted anything. My turkey's gone.
Like, what are you doing? It's just like...
That's the thing as well. Jim Carrey walks away scot-free.
Yeah.
You know? And look,
with Cameron Diaz, by the way.
it happens once with the mask. I forgive you. Like, you don't remember what happened. Happens the second time, and he starts, like, continually using it. You know, throughout the movie and putting himself in specific situations which he knows he will cause bad things to happen. It's like, at that point, dude, like, you should go to prison. Sorry.
You're not wrong, man. Like, it's funny because, like, at the end of the day, I feel like Jim Carrey being the mask is the stuff I remember loving and that kind of stuff, and I still do, but, like, it's just, a lot of it's just, like, potty humor and him just being like, ha, ha, like, just making stupid sounds.
Yeah.
Like, I do,
Yeah.
like, there are still some great lines in this. I love, like, when he's like, Party. Because I gotta, and he's like speeding off.
I appreciate that you're saying some good lines, but a line just popped into my movie, into my head. It might be the line of the movie. The reference to the BBD.
The what?
Do you remember this? There's a bit where, like, his best friend's like, you know, the BBD, and then it, like, he says it stands for something else, but then in your mind, you're like, know what he's actually referencing, and you're like, what? Why is that in this kid's movie?
When is this?
Like, it's in a scene where, like, he's trying to chat up Jim Carrey, and he's like, hey, man, like, you gotta have some the girls love some BBD.
Oh, right, okay. I'm back aboard.
And I was like, what? What did he just say? And then it's like, and it's like stands for something else, but you're like, this is just, it's going too far.
It's weird you have these really adult jokes, but then, like, you'll have it contrasted with Jim Carrey making something really childish, like, as a comment. He'll be like, have you heard of my friend Benjamin Lincoln? And he's like holding up all like these notes and that kind of stuff. It's so weird that those jokes will be like almost in the same scene. It's like, who are you? It's like it's like you're being schizophrenic and you're trying to please both adults and kids in the same moment. It's like, it doesn't work.
Totally.
Unless you're Pixar, it just doesn't work. Or Disney in general.
Again, I put it down to the screenplay. I'm sure Jim Carrey did a lot of improv, but, like, man.
This whole movie feels like improv. It's like Jim Carrey wants to suddenly dance with Cameron Diaz. Let's hypnotize the jazz band. It's like, I feel like they're like, okay, what do you want? Do you want a cowboy outfit? He's like, sure, I'll pretend to die and give a great Oscar speech. Like, he'll just cycle through the motions. Like, Brenton, I'm going to try and find a sweet spot for you because I know what a sucker you are for animals. What did you think of the dog?
I did like the dog.
Yeah,
I like
knew
doggies.
you'd come around.
I like doggies, but again, it's like, it's kind of terrifying when it becomes the mask.
I was waiting for you to experience that.
Again, like, I was just like, whoa, like, this just escalated super quickly. But also, like, how Jim Carrey, like, rips the mask off the dog, and the dog's like, oh man, that's trauma
fucking
for life.
weird. Like, yeah, it's like, let's not do that again. It's like,
yeah, and yet at the end of the movie, the final, like, end is that the dog gets the mask again.
yeah, that's it. Like, his best friend, like, jumps off a fucking bridge and should easily fall from, like, be dead from the fall, but, like, swims after the mask. Meanwhile, Jim Carrey's like macking out with Cam Diaz, and, like, the dog's just like swimming away for it. Oh, it's so terrible. It's funny because the sequel actually has the dog getting the mask and doing more shit with it, but, like, it's no good. Would you believe me, Brenton? The sequel's even shittier than this movie.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh no. Nathan, if you were Jim Carrey and you had this mask that has, like, Loki's life force in it, right?
Yeah.
It's caused all these bad things to happen, right? You're happy with where you are in life, and you're going to just throw it back in the river so someone else is going to get it? Wouldn't you just, like, hold on to it and just keep it there and not use it?
It reminds me of the end of Jumanji when, like, they just throw the board game away. It's like, no, someone else is going to find Jumanji and just still fuck everything up, which is exactly what happens. It's like, no, this should be destroyed. It's like, and it's like, it doesn't, also the mask doesn't look that valuable as well. Like, I think you could probably snap it in half. Like, it doesn't look that sturdy. So, like,
Could you imagine if the sequel to this was like the start of the Lord of the Rings trilogy? And it's like,
oh my goodness. It's just whispering. It's a
we must go to the fires of Mount Doom to destroy the mask.
Jeez. Just like, I could see why Gollum ended up the way he did if he was wearing the mask.
Yeah, totally. Jim Carrey is basically playing Gollum in this film. Let's be honest. Like, you might as well just grab a big, raw, wriggling fish and just bite its head off. Like, and it wouldn't be out of character.
It actually really wouldn't. Like, oh, jeez. I would love to see it. Just
wait, could you imagine if Jim Carrey was cast as Gollum in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Oh, I could so see Jim Carrey just doing that scene from Two Towers where he's just like talking to himself as Gollum. He's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Do we kill him? It's like, no, we need him. It's just holding the mask. Just
Or like when the mean version of Gollum, like Gollum as opposed to Smeagol's, or like, you don't have any friends. And like, he's like,
it's funny because he doesn't. He's like, murderer.
Oh, it's so good. I could totally see him playing Gollum in another universe.
I would love
for
that,
sure.
man. Every time Andy Serkis does Gollum, I'm like, fuck, it gets me in a good mood. Just like...
Do you start your day with clips of Gollum? Like life quotes, inspirational, motivational quotes from Gollum?
Bretton, every day, I could disclose this now on the podcast finally. Every day I start my day by going on YouTube and looking up Andy Serkis pretending to be Theresa May, but as Gollum. And it's easily the best thing on the internet, and I love it too much.
Oh, I'm happy for you, my friend.
What was it? The Amazon Lord of the Rings series? Bring in Jim Carrey as Gollum. He'll do it.
Bring Jim Carrey as Gollum. He's free. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's
make it happen. Start a petition now. Hashtag Jim as Gollum.
We got that Gollum video game coming up. Maybe Jim Carrey did some mocap.
I hope so.
Just like surprise twist. It was Jim Carrey the whole time.
I hope like one of his attack moves is like the Mask 12. He just like cyclones into you. Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
that'd be great. Oh god, that game's gonna suck dick, but I love it. I'm so excited.
Nathan, should we get into some special
Oh,
segments?
please.
Special segment. Ooh, so special.
Oh, Nathan, so whilst I was watching this film,
Yes.
the question that just kept entering my mind was, what if the Mask was in the MCU?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe itself. It was in the Avengers movies. I know, it's so funny, Brenton. Like, the exact same thing happened to me. I've never thought about it more than I have now. I'm like, what if we put this character in with the Avengers?
I don't think he'd be out of place. Like, as shit as this movie is, and as shit as Jim is in it, I would kind of be like, oh yeah, I could see him being in the Avengers. Sure.
I think it could work. I think the real question is like, what would he do? Like, he's obviously got enough superpowers to really like have a real go at Thanos. You know, I'm sure he probably pull out some like cartoon hammer and just start like whacking Thanos with it. But like, I feel like, well, it's Loki's mask, right? So if we're gonna put this version of the Mask in the MCU, here's what I think is happening. Like, presuming this is before the Loki TV series, so like, I reckon like, you know, it's the Avengers 1, Brent, and Loki's invading New York, and like maybe Loki's losing. You know, the Avengers have got the upper hand, so Loki's like, fuck, I need my secret weapon. So Thanos' army isn't doing the job. So Loki just like, he whips out his mask and just like, you know, Jim Carrey, he's a civilian, he's running along the streets hoping not to get hit by like the aliens, and as Loki just like jumps down, slams it on like Jim Carrey's face, and boom, Jim Carrey is now working with Loki. And he's up against the Avengers.
I can see that happening. I think that'd be awesome.
Actually, you know what? Okay, the original 6 Avengers, I reckon Jim Carrey as the Mask could easily kill probably half of them. I reckon like...
I agree.
I reckon Hawkeye's down, Black Widow's down, Cap's down.
Nathan, you're not wrong at all. I genuinely agree with you.
Would he defeat Iron Man? This is now just turned into Battle Royale, but like, would he defeat Iron Man, Hulk, or Thor?
Iron Man, yes.
He probably would kill RDJ. He'd probably just like pull some screws out of RDJ's armor and just like smoke a French cigarette.
I think he'd kill Cap too. I think he could kill Thor. I don't think he would kill Hulk, because Hulk's also green. I think he'd be like, oh, brother.
Dad? He just goes up to Hulk. Bruce is like, ugh.
Yeah.
Hope you're not Betty Brants. But like, it's true. I feel like him and RDJ would have like a whip off. Like they'd just be like telling jokes and like, you know what I mean? Like, oh no, they're having a quip off where they're just like, you know, they're just telling jokes and they're just trying to outdo each other, and like no one's laughing by this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you're exactly right. I think no one in all of New York in that battle is laughing.
I think the Mask would win, and then Loki himself would just get so sick of Jim Carrey, so Loki would just like stab him with his little scepter. Like, right, that's enough of you. Like,
and he'd just like fade away. He'd catch the Mask, and Jim Carrey would be back in his pajamas or something.
Yeah, but there's like giant hole in his chest. You're like, ooh.
Well, at least we know what his design would be, because I literally think he'd be green Red Skull. Like, I think that's what he'd look like.
Probably. I think that'd be great. Like, he does like the Red Skull thing as well. Like, he's like taking like Loki's like crying from like, you know, winning the battle, and like Jim Carrey's skull, he's just like, those tears are not for you, Fräulein. Like the one Red Skull line I remember.
Exactly. Nathan, speaking of the Mask in modern movies, could this movie be remade And would it be worth it?
Yes. I think subject matter wise, there's something you can do with this property, right?
I do agree, yeah. But who's going to play the mask?
Oh, a part of me, I feel like, is Jim Carrey the issue? Like, could you bring him back?
You could.
I can see Jim Carrey kind of doing what Harrison Ford's doing right now, just revisiting his iconic roles and just doing another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And everyone's like, oh yeah, The Mask, that classic. And then they go back and watch it and go, holy shit, that's awful.
Yeah, all the faults of the fact that Cameron Diaz is like retired from acting. So, I don't know. Maybe not Jim Carrey. Maybe you get someone young and new, some fresh blood, like who's also pretty funny as well. Like someone who can quip well. Whoever is the latest and greatest hot thing from SNL, bring him on board.
Is there any big names you'd go for?
Some young hot things.
Like, could Ryan Reynolds do it again?
Well, Ryan Reynolds has already done it. It's called Deadpool.
Yeah, but I mean, could he do The Mask as well?
I think it'd just be too derivative at this point. Like, he could do The Mask, but people would just say, oh, you're just doing Deadpool, but he's green. You know what I mean?
Deadpool, but he's green. That can be the slogan.
It'd sell tickets. I think you could, I could even see maybe like Kevin Hart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
think it'd be really funny. Jack Black, I think that could be interesting casting. I think it'd be really funny, is it?
Yeah, that'd be funny too.
Yeah, someone older, I think maybe. Maybe young's not the angle. Like, because I think of like young, funny actors, like Pete Davidson or something like that, like, or John Mulaney or something like that. I don't know if John Mulaney could pull it off. Like, if he could do Spider-Pig, he can do this. Like,
if he can do Spider-Pig, he can do this.
Yeah.
That's the quote of the show.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. I guess we'll find out. They'll touch it again. It's funny because like Marvel and DC don't own the mask, so this is one of those few comic properties that like it's truly on its own.
Yeah, totally.
So if anything, if it's not owned by Marvel and DC, that means probably like Netflix is going to sweep it up or something.
Netflix's The Mask series. Tune in now.
Oh, bring back Henry Cavill. If he can do Witcher, he can do this.
If he can do Witcher, he can do this. I couldn't agree more. Nathan, should we see what stills this movie?
Let's do it.
Ooh, it's blinding.
So what stills this movie, in case you don't know, is a segment on the show where Nathan or myself or both of us together pick a still, a single frame from the film we are reviewing, and we pick this on the basis of it usually being absolutely hilarious, or maybe it's just a beautiful piece of cinematography. This week's still is both.
Oh my goodness.
What are we looking at here?
So there's a scene. Scene in the movie where like Jim Carrey's like getting arrested by the cops finally, like in the park right before Cuban Pete, and like they're just like confiscating every object in his pocket, but there's just every single object you can imagine. Like they pull out bazookas, they pull out a fish, and then like at one point they pull out like a framed photo of like the police chief's wife, and it's just like her in some like weird ass stripper pajamas just on a bed, and like in this like shitty little frame, and at the corner of the frame is her handwriting just saying "Call me lover" with her phone number.
Could you imagine being like an investigator, like, you know, you're a detective,
yeah,
right, and you're searching, like you finally found the person that's been like, I don't know, robbing banks or committing murders, and you just reach into their pocket and there's a suggestive photo of your wife, say like with a note stamp being like, "Call me back." Like, what do you do? Like, this guy handles it like a champ. He hardly reacts. He's like, "What the heck?" And then you like punches him or something.
Yeah.
But it's
like,
like,
that's my wife. And he's like, I thought you have a sense of humor. You married her.
Like, if there was a sequel to this movie, it would be like basically a divorce flick about like this police. Oh
my goodness! It's just like Kramer v. Kramer, just like like Jim Carrey's like a witness at the trial. Like, oh
yeah, could you? He's a witness at trial. Could you imagine like him on the bench being like, so you reached into your pocket and his pocket and you found a picture of my wife in the mask's pocket. It's like who the heck's got like it's got the potential, man. I feel like we could write a screenplay called The Masks. What we call it?
Mask v. Mask.
Or like, I don't know, like, here you go. She loved me until the mask.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That sounds like a bad porno. Like, the fact that this scene happens, it really makes me wish that we got the exact same moment in The Dark Knight, where like, you know, the Joker's been arrested and like Gordon's just going through all of like Joker's knives that he's like confiscating, and then like he pulls out like a photo of like Mrs. Gordon from like the Joker's breast pocket or something. and
Gordon's like, "You son of a bitch."
Yeah, Gary Oldman just tries to like punch Heath Ledger, and like Heath Ledger's just like, "Ha!" It's like, there's nothing you can do, is he? Nothing with all your strength. He's like, "That's my wife." He's like, "Don't worry, I'm going to tell you where she is. She's waiting for me back at your house." Like, oh, well, hey, let's look at this film's poster.
Blanton.
Yes.
Let's look at this film's poster.
But is it art?
Nathan, this poster's all the things that are wrong with this movie. It's all...
As a child, would this sell you on the movie? Like, oh
no, I'd be scared. I'd be like checking under my bed that this figure, you know, with this horrible goblin face and with big teeth, is not hiding under there, ready to like bite my toes off.
So imagine like
this is disgusting.
So then imagine like if you're scared about what's coming under the bed. Imagine like Monsters Inc. and the closet door opens and it's like Jim Carrey's The Mask. mask. He could be the sole employee.
Monsters Inc. is the only like film property where like a mask crossover would make sense.
So he's just like, who are you? And he's like, I'm your next top scarer. And he just starts fucking about like, that's a crossover we need.
I totally agree.
But you're right, dude. This is just... I like his yellow suit, but Christ, it's creepy. Like, they just...
I do like his yellow suit. I think it's his best look.
Yeah, same. It's like the one from the comics. Like, it's the most iconic one. But like this doesn't hold a candle to Blade. Like, considering like that's the only other major superhero film we've done. Like, oh, shitty poster.
So what should it be instead? I think it's got the right idea. I just think it's creepy in execution.
I think it needs like a shitty like COVID-safe blue mask.
Sure.
Give it up for the times. Like, I don't know. Like,
sure.
Like I don't know. Put in Tom Hiddleston. Maybe he's just looking over the shoulder, just like going, "That's my mask." Like, there's like a little speech bubble next to him.
Dude, in all seriousness, maybe it just could have been the wooden mask.
Actually, that's how you remake this. Just make the Loki movie about. Just give Tom Hiddleston the mask. He could pull it off.
Yeah, totally.
Just give Loki the mask.
I agree.
Yeah, he'd do it.
But I reckon the poster could actually literally be the mask, and if you wanted to make it something else, it could be Jim Carrey holding the mask. And make it a bit, don't give it all away, Like,
yeah, save the reveal.
Like, what's the mask?
the Jurassic Park like gates are like slightly opening. There's just Jim Carrey popping his head out like. What mystery? Ooh, come into the cinema.
Well, the mask has got a lot of power, but should we pass some of that power to the people?
But before we do, let's do some title talk.
Oh God, I forgot it.
I did it again. I love it. Oh, there's another tally on the wall.
Ooh, it's the title.
Nathan, was the mask in the mask?
I mean, technically, yes. You know what? There are a fuck ton of masks in this movie, if you consider like that guy's office.
There was. Yeah, dude, there were so many masks in that office. Is the mask a good title? I think it is.
It does its job, doesn't it? Like, it's pretty short, simple,
It
to
does.
the point. Like, there's nothing else you could really do for it.
No, I think it's well done. Well done. The one thing this movie had going for it was the title.
Yeah, because, ooh, what's the mask? What a mystery. Ooh, like, I was intrigued.
Nathan, shall we now get all that power
Of course,
and pass it to the people?
Pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
So if you all head on over to the tomato meter, you'll see that the critics gave this movie a score of 77% and the audience has given it a score of 68%.
Way too
Interesting.
high. Way too high.
Very high.
But what's really interesting is that this made fucking bank in the 90s. Like, this cost like 20 mil to make, and it made 350 million. Like, how insane is that? And it's so funny, it made like this much money. I think it's one of the highest grossing films ever at that point. Like, it was so high. And yet it never got a sequel. Like despite it made this much money, like, New Line never pushed to have a sequel. Like, it's so weird that never happened.
Just leave it. Leave it alone. Not everything needs a sequel. Good on you, New Line, because I could not have handled a sequel to this crap.
Well, Mike Massey from Gone with the Twins did handle it, Brenton. He liked the movie. He gave it 9 out of 10 and said, what an absolutely perfect role for the out-of-control rubber-faced Jim Carrey, giving him purpose and plot that allows him to go as overboard as he wants.
I get Mike's sentiment here, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is the perfect role for Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
100%.
Only Jim Carrey could have done this.
Here's the problem, though. This does not give him purpose or plot. Right?
No.
That's my big disagreement. It's like, yeah, sure, but like all we're getting is Jim Carrey just being weird to try and make up for the fact that this movie's got no plot. He's not really a character.
So no, Brenton says. He says no.
I say no to you, Mike. No, Mike Massel.
Tell Scotty I do give a damn.
TV Guide gave this a rotten review and said, though the story has a certain universal appeal, I don't know what universal appeal that is. Who hasn't felt like a useless jerk and wished to wake up capable of anything? I mean, I get your point, I guess. The execution is oddly sour and distasteful. Sour and distasteful, a great way to put it.
And Brenton. But you're not wrong. Like, there's a great hole in this movie where, like, yes, there's such a possibility where, yeah, you could do anything. Wow, you got the magic of the lamp. You could do anything you want. But all he does is just fuck about going to a nightclub or just wolf whistling at Cameron Diaz, you know?
That's right.
He even says at one point, I could fight crime, but then he doesn't.
Like, if you put on the mask, though, like, you run the risk of yourself becoming like a giant dickhead and that you'll end up in prison.
He's a villain. He robs a bank and goes to jail.
He's awful.
And he doesn't give back the money. Like, he's a villain.
The Mask is awful. You heard it here first.
Andrew A. gave it 1 star and wrote, I liked it as a kid, but it doesn't hold up well for 2021. I guess the effects were kind of new at the time, but there's not enough going on here to keep my interest.
Nathan, are you Andrew A? This sounds like your opinion.
Yeah, let me take off my mask, Brenton.
Oh, please don't. Oh, God.
Oh, no. Put it back on.
Yeah, I mean, like, Andrew's sharing a lot of sentiments we've spoken about today, so nothing really new here, but thank you, Andrew. It's nice to know you with us. EC gave this 5 stars and said, this is my favorite Jim Carrey film of all time. This film is really funny, and for a comedy that came out in 1994, it actually has some really good effects. effects. This is definitely a great comedy film.
Look, man, people might find this funny. Like, also, EC could be 5. People love this movie, man. Even now, you'll find its defenders. Like, that's why, we're interested to chat to you listeners about this. Like, we want to hear about people who fucking love this because it's very foreign to us, isn't it, Brenton?
Yeah, please tell me why you love this. I need to know. I'm like Kate Blanchett in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I want to know.
Jane St. Valentine on YouTube wrote, I'm just going to say it. If the Deadpool movie had been made in the 90s or early 2000s even, I think we all know who would have been cast in the lead role.
Is Jim Carrey right for Deadpool?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? Of course he's right for Deadpool. Yeah, this is Deadpool, dude.
Yeah.
Like, this is almost a Deadpool movie. Like, you know what I mean? You just give him some blades and Dopinder in a taxi and this is Deadpool.
It's funny because the movie I actually thought this was the most similar to is also a comic book movie, and it's actually Venom.
Oh, really? Have you seen Venom?
No, but like I've seen clips of it,
Oh,
and I
right.
understand like what's happening. That like there's this entity that's taking over someone. It's like he's not really sure about it.
Yeah,
Right?
actually, yeah.
But he's doing all this shit, right? And it's like, oh, am I a good guy or a bad guy? Like it's very similar to Venom.
It's just like he puts on the mask and the mask starts whispering like, Jim Carrey, you're actually kind of a loser. And he's like, oh.
Now can we eat its brains?
And then he's looking at the dog like, oh, run.
But yeah, Jim Carrey, I mean, like he would have been cast in all those roles today,
Yeah, easily.
Katsadilla,
Of course.
what a name, says this. As a kid, I thought it was so nice that those ladies on the sidewalk were such good sports and joining in. But now I realize they're just hookers.
I love it. Oh.
It doesn't mean they're not nice ladies for joining in.
No, they probably
Come
are.
on.
They're used to joining in at this point, so good on them.
Well, listeners, thank you for joining in to Classic Movie Banter this week. Not as hookers, but as lovely listeners. We do appreciate it.
We'll never pay for your services, listeners.
But that was The Mask, and we
was
can't
The
wait.
Mask.
Well, I can wait, but we can't wait to chat a little bit more about The Mask later in the week when we release our newest episode of Feature Fridays with the Banter Boys, which is our new, shorter podcast that we do, where we talk about movies that are brand new. And yeah, we respond to you, our listeners, and we answer any topics that you raise or any comments or concerns that you have. Write in via our social platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, or just send us an email.
We will. You think we'd be sick of the mask, Brenton, or masks in general after this pandemic, but oh boy, are we looking forward to more masks. It's the film of our times.
Nathan, I couldn't disagree more, but we've run out of time to keep.
Get me out of here. Let's go to the bar and finally celebrate my birthday the way that we should be doing it, Brenton. By referencing Emperor's New Groove far more than this film.
Just bring us a plate of spinach puffs and we'll be happy.
Oh, that's such a mood right now. Christ, I could use some spinach puffs.
Kronk, get in that kitchen, cook me up some spinach puffs. I'll be very thankful.
I'd love to see Kronk with the mask on. Jeez, that'd be fun.
Oh my god, that should be...
He'd be like, squeaker squeaking, and he's just like got a like squirrel's tail. Like, oh jeez. There's some fan fiction for you to draw. Someone do it. Looking forward to seeing it.
Bye guys.